this is the lead dude, the visionary, running the ship of the last bastion, the last hope for MMOs for quite some time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stream.
All right. What's going on, bros? Good to see you, and welcome to the Empire
That we are bringing to you today. I'm super excited. We had one of these last year, I believe, sometime before, I think it was before our Alpha 1 test that we did. And I had a really enjoyable time actually doing that AMA because there was a lot of fun questions. And obviously, you know, we have our monthly live streams and we show a lot of things there. And we try.
One thing, and I know people are now referring to this game similar to Star Citizen. Will it ever be done? You know, things like this. And the thing is we've got to give props to them. They are doing a monthly live stream, right? They're constantly showing what they're working on, and being very, very active with the community. Despite being in very, very early phases of the game. And what that is doing, though, in my opinion, is it is solidifying the community base for those that will be diehard fans. Right? There will be those that will naysay, will say this game will never come out, or it's a Star Citizen. But if you think of, World of Warcraft and their player base, and their diehard fans, there's that je ne sais quoi, right? That ride or die for your game. And what this is doing is really drumming up that base, keeping them active, and feeding them a little by little the things that they're working on. The difference between this game and Star Citizen is the captain of the ship. The captain of the ship for Star Citizen wants it to be a lifetime development and continually adding new features, new things, and who knows if that game will ever be released. He was like that with his previous projects. This captain is far different. He is a lover of video games. I know I've said that before, and a lover of MMOs. And he's gotten a bunch of good developers together, and they've done some really, really cool things so far.
Try to dedicate as much time as we can at the end of those live streams for Q&A.
Let me know.
Obviously, there's just
if
so
it's
many
not loud
questions
enough
that get asked from the community, and it's really a great thing that you guys are so involved. Those of you who are tuning in, that you ask these questions and you give us feedback, and so it means a lot to us to be able to kind of have this exchange with you, to kind of answer these questions. But from these answers, it spawns a lot of conversation in the community, across the forums, across Reddit. And it's really great for our team to kind of go in and take a look, and our team does go in quite often and look at the Reddits, look at the forums, read the threads and the responses, the experiences that all of you have had across different games. And obviously a lot of these ideas, a lot of these systems are very familiar to many of you out there. And, we don't have to reinvent the wheel to make a really good MMORPG. And a lot of our concepts come from the games that we've played in the past, and we've kind of brought them together, as many of you know.
And not only has he played a bunch of MMOs, but a lot of I believe it's true, when he was hiring people, one of the questions were, what MMOs have you played in the past? And at what depth? Which is not necessarily a question that is asked, right? Or that is important. It's your skills, your education and things like this. But it does bring to the point the passion, the games that you're going to be pulling from. One of the great things that World of Warcraft has done is, and that we see it now, even in the new. What do they call it? It's not a DLC. Is it a DLC? The new DLC for the Dragonflight. They're bringing a very fluid action combat style to their tab targeting. Also because they're going to be porting over to console, which is pretty crazy. 10 years later, WoW will be porting to console. But that's so they continue to innovate, and that's why WoW has been one of the top MMOs. But I do believe that they're taking. WoW has always pulled from other things they see, and that's how you innovate, right? And they're doing the same thing, right? From all of the MMOs that they've played collaboratively, or they say, oh, that's a great idea. Let's make a version of that.
In one single game that is Ashes of Creation. So really excited to kind of go through this. We've obviously, as many of you are aware, we had a thread on our Reddit. And for those of you who went and posted questions there, you had an opportunity to upvote the questions that you thought were most pressing or that you wanted to get answers for. And the community team has put together these questions in a list of 50 that, we'll see how many we get through today. But has put them together. I haven't had much of an opportunity to kind of look through them, so I'll be answering them a bit off the cuff, just obviously from my knowledge. And if there are some things that I can't answer, of course I will say that we'll be reserving the
Some
answers
people
for
feel
later,
that way.
but I don't expect that we will have that issue. So I
but
have my
it is-
trusty iPad here.
And some people may feel that because it was extremely expensive to get into the alpha, right? To get in to the beta, which it was crazy, right? The price, but they're extremely active with the community, and they have showcased a lot of really interesting features that are homegrown. I've seen a lot of scams, right? We've all seen a lot of scams come out of the Kickstarter stuff, games that you've never seen any gameplay, or they were all assets that were purchased from the engine store and everything. They're making amazing art, and they've got a lot of concepts and visions. My concern isn't whether it's a scam or not, but whether they can execute on all of the things that they've mentioned. There's a lot of things that they're working on. Days Gone, I'm not sure, but there's a bunch, right? There's so many, but they haven't delivered yet. But it's because they said they're taking their sweet time to make it the GOAT. And one thing that I think you can agree with me is that we're complaining all the time that games are coming out half done, right? They don't let it cook long enough. Even the small things, this or that, because they've got to release the game because of the people above them saying you got to make money. New World was released way too early, right? And now a year later, we're interested in playing New World again to see if the game is better, right? Which I do think it's better, but is it good? But they're not releasing the game. They're working on all very, very unique aspects. Sometimes, and I wouldn't agree, but I can understand where some people say they're putting too much effort into the little things. But combat was looking pretty good. Still too little MMO-y for my preference. But it is an MMO, so I understand that, right? My like ideal game would be a little bit less, but the whole action combat where like local targeting, I think is great for casters and hunters. I think it's going to make them pretty powerful. But I do look forward to the progression of the style.
To take a look at some of these questions, and we will begin. So, the number one upvoted question that was present on the Reddit thread was, Since Ashes will need a healthy and active player base on each server, do you have a plan in place to deal with server merges? And that was asked by Hybrid PS2. So, to answer that question, yes, we do have a plan in place for how we would want to go about conducting server merges. For all of us who have played MMORPGs, we're aware that over time, populations can dwindle on a particular server. New user acquisition isn't usually the strongest aspect of MMOs. Typically, you see a large portion of the population start on day one, and a lot of MMOs suffer a bit of attrition going forward from that. And of course, there are opportunities to recoup that population during expansions and during updates. But ultimately, most MMOs that we've played fall into needing to have server merges. Now, that can become a little bit complicated, especially when you're dealing with things like property ownership and owning homes
and localized
and
cities,
having mayors and castles.
Yeah.
All of those things contribute to kind of a complication in how server merges are conducted. For Ashes of Creation, excuse me, I might cough a little bit during this AMA, but I apologize in advance. For Ashes of Creation, we have also an element of world building, and that's how these cities obviously come up. Now, we know that Ashes of Creation will facilitate regionalized server locations, and this means that prime times in those regions will adhere to the associated time zone that they're in. And as such, server merges will be conducted within those particular regions between servers that share that prime time zone, so that we're not mixing population.
I always thought that there was a game, and I don't remember the name of the game. It was before my time. I never played it. It was terrible graphics, terrible. Computers weren't that great, but it was an MMO, sci-fi MMO. And but I do remember some of the concepts that I heard about the game from just lurking on the internet, and one of them was that the devs created active events. And I know I've talked about this before, but I loved it. These were events that were not necessarily planned, right? But they would play out, right, in different ways. And how the developers and how the community acted was different. Two servers were not the same. Two devs were not the same, which was very interesting. And it caused a lot of problems and stuff, I'm sure. But referring to server merges, right, I just had like this imagination of there being a huge meteor in the sky, right? And then a time clock saying this is when live quests is what we called it in the 90s. And before my time. But I thought it was amazing, right? Because the server was alive, right? The story wasn't written. And that, you don't see that now very much. But man, is it freaking cool, Yo, what's up, Paizun? And so what I'm like imagining with server merges. Imagine if in New World there were server merges, right? Or in this game there are server merges, and then you're not told, right? You log in, and you're aware that there's this huge meteor. Right, and then you find out that the meteor is going to hit the ground and destroy the world in so much time, right? And there's a clock of how much time. Oh, a week. It's happening in a week, okay? And then maybe there's some things, right, that there's things to prep or things that you can do, but the inevitable doom is coming, and as it gets closer to that time, let them sweat. You know what I mean? Let them be confused. That's part of it. But they're able to secure and save their stuff. Okay? And then the servers merge, right? That's just a technical issue. But then it's a clean slate. It's a fresh slate. Somehow they were saved and they've got their stuff, but they have to rebuild. Right? So that story, you know what I mean? There's a story that makes sense in everyone's head, and it's not just, oh well, population sucked. We're merging these two people or these two groups, and then we're gonna, yeah, we understand that you guys had all this and you guys had all that. But with the story, well, actually, it was all destroyed. So now you guys have to do again. You know, some of the fun parts, the reason why Rust is so great, is you have to do the beginning over again. I don't want to do the beginning over again on Ark. I don't want to, you know, like, but if I had to, right? I do enjoy doing all those things, but I can't be fucked, right? I'm sitting pretty with repairing capped tech suits that are gifted to me. Why would I want to go tame and kilo again? But if the story was made so that this is, you know, that forced us the refresh, then it is fun to do those things. And it would make sense in our head, right? We could justify it. Oh, well, that world was destroyed and their world was destroyed, you know? And now the gold rush. We all know what to do, right? Oh, we were over here, but now we have a chance. We actually want to go over here now and build because of this plan, you know, and all these different things. And so that fresh start could be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. But I would love, love, love to see at some point even the pitchforks from the community, because one storyteller or dev is an ambivalent asshole, you know, and they're jealous because they heard a server over here they get free candy, right? While this server over here has got bats flying around or some shit, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be the same. And the difference makes it alive. But anyways.
With different regions as we do the merges. That's one aspect of the merge strategy that we have as part of our solution for server merges in the future. In addition, there is something that we would consider a weak and strong server. When we think about pairing servers into those merges, we think about how the populations have progressed at the time the decision gets made to make a server merge, and we would have the weak server merge into the strong server. Depending on what that means from the player's perspective of things like usernames and the ability to change those names because names are unique on a per server basis, there would be an opportunity for players to make name changes who are coming from the weaker server. And then when it comes to land ownership and property ownership, the weak server that's merging into the strong server, there's two potentials there. One, it would be a reset on those land ownerships and homes for both servers, and they would conduct the opportunity to reestablish their ownership when that merge is complete. Or the alternative, if there's a much stronger server, then the weak server would be coming in with an opportunity to make that population reacquire those houses. This is something that is, of course, important, and you guys giving feedback on kind of the types of strategies you've seen in the past would be super beneficial to comment on and talk about how you would foresee server merges working best in Ashes of Creation. The second question